So our topic, main topic for third week is illustrating a normal random variable and its characteristics. So let's begin with the objectives. These are the objectives for the lesson for today. Define a normal random variable. Number 2 is to illustrate a normal random variable and its characteristics. And then number 3, state the empirical rule. So let's define first what is normal probability distribution. So a normal probability distribution is a probability distribution of continuous random variables. Tandaan lang natin, no? So normal probability distribution, distribution of continuous random variables. Highlight lang natin. Wala, wait lang. Ayan. So many random variables are either normally distributed or at least approximately normally distributed. So examples of continuous random variables are height, weight, and examination scores. So everything na na infinite and then na-measure siya using measuring tool. Then it is easy for mathematical statisticians to work with the normal curve. A number of hypothesis tests and the regression model are based on the assumption that the underlying data have normal distributions. So later on, makikita natin ano ba yung itsura ng isang normal curve. I think meron naman na kayo idea, no, what is a normal curve looks like. Excuse. Okay, so let's have an example muna of how do we derive the normal distribution curve or the normal curve. So the distribution of the height, so that's represented by variable capital X in centimeter of the 16 teachers of SC and HS was presented below. So these are the data of the 16 teachers, no, from SC and HS. So these are their height in centimeters. And then if we graph that using a histogram, ito yung magiging itsura niya. So pansinin natin, yung may height na 138 is 1 centimeter, isa lang. And then yung may height ng 139 centimeters dapat, hindi pala siya dapat dito. So that's 2 respondents, 143 respondents, 4, and so on and so forth. Okay? So the distribution of the height of the teachers is one of the examples of the distribution of a normal random variable. So pansinin natin, no, normally distributed siya. Paano siya naging normally distributed? Pansinin nyo, 4 is the mean or yung center. And then pansinin natin na halos symmetrical lang siya. Kung may 3 dito sa kaliwa, meron din 3 dito sa kanan, then 2, 2, 1, and 1. And then, pag halimbawa, ang normal curve kasi is ganito yung tsura niya. Okay? Bell shape siya. Sige, later on, makikita natin ano ba talaga. Ayan. So, properties of a normal curve. So, I think meron 6 properties, no, yung normal curve. So, the first property is that the normal curve is bell-shaped. So, kailangan bell-shaped yung itsura ng isang normal curve. So, ayan, ito yung normal curve. Ayan yung itsura niya. So, you have the x-axis and then the y-axis and then just plot the given data and then kailangan maging bell-shaped siya. The second property of a normal curve is that the curve is symmetrical about its center. So, if it is a normal curve, pansinin natin, bell-shaped siya, kailangan the curve is symmetrical about its center. So, kung ito yung center ng ating normal curve, kailangan symmetrical siya. Meaning, kung ano yung meron sa kaliwa, kailangan meron din sa kanan. So, meaning to say, equal dapat sila, no? Parehas. The third property of a normal curve is, so the mean, median, and mode, or considered as the central tendency, coincide at the center. So the mean, the median, and the mode should be equal to each other in a normal curve. Okay? Ayan. So, sa isang normal curve, yung mean, median, mode, siya yung kailangan na nasa center. Kaya nga siya tinawag na central tendency. However, pag nag-graph tayo using a normal curve, most of the time, ang kinoconsider lang natin is yung value ng mean. So, the value of the mean will determine what is the center. Okay, where is the center of the normal curve? Okay, so the fourth property of a normal curve is that the width, okay, the width of the curve is determined by the standard deviation of the distribution. So, dito i-apply natin yung natutunan natin sa previous lesson about solving the mean and then solving the standard deviation. Ayan. So, kung yung mean, ang dinedetermine niya is yung center ng ating normal curve, yung standard deviation naman, siya yung nagde-determine how wide or how spread yung ating normal curve. So, pansinin nyo, ito yung mean natin, nasa center naman sila. And then, pansinin nyo, magkaiba na itsura yung normal curve natin. It's because their standard deviation are different. Okay? Ayan. So, the fifth property of a normal curve is that the tails of the curve are plotted in both directions and flattened out indefinitely along the horizontal axis. The tails are thus asymptotic to the baseline. So, a portion of the graph that is asymptotic to a reference axis or another graph is called an asymptote, always approaching another but never touching it. Okay, sa isang normal curve kasi, meron kasi tayong one-way normal curve or two-tailed. Excuse. One-tailed normal curve saka two-tailed normal curve. So, dito sa topic na to, ang gagamitin natin is yung two-tailed normal curve. Pag sinabi natin two-tailed, titingnan lang naman natin yung dulo nun. Ayan. Pag one-tailed, isang tail lang yung i-consider natin. Either itong nasa left side or itong nasa right side. Pero commonly, ang kino-consider doon is yung nasa left side because that's the starting point of a normal curve. So, ang tawag dun sa sa tail, okay? The tails are thus asymptotic or tinatawag na asymptote. Meaning to say, kahit mag-extend indefinitely yung tails or yung tail ng normal curve, hindi siya didikit or mag-i-intersect dun sa ating horizontal axis or sa x-axis. So, ang tawag doon sa phenomena na yon is asymptote. So, kahit anong value nung nasa tail ng normal curve, hindi siya mag-i-intersect sa x-axis natin. Ayan. So, asymptotic. Okay, so the sixth property of a normal curve is that the total area under a normal curve is 1. So, kailangan 1 lang siya. Pag nag-exceed sa 1, merong mali. Pag less than 1, merong mali dun sa solution natin or on how we present the normal curve. So, this means that the normal curve represents the probability or the proportion or the percentage associated with specific sets of measurement values. So a standard normal curve is a normal probability distribution that has a mean equals to 0 and a standard deviation equals to 1. So the next one is empirical rule. So, ano yung mga rules under empirical rule? So, empirical rule, also referred to as the 68, 95, 99.7% rule. Ano yung 68, 95, 99.7% rule? So, it tells us that for a normally distributed variable, the following are true. Approximately 68% of the data lie within one standard deviation of the mean. Again, it's approximately 68%. It does not necessarily means na kailangan eksaktong 68%, no? Approximately 68% lang ng data should lie within one standard deviation of the mean. Later on, makikita natin yan sa ating illustration. So, represented by mathematical expression. And then approximately 95% of the data lie within two standard deviations of the mean, mathematically represented by this. And then lastly, approximately 99.7% of the data lie within three standard deviations of the mean. So ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, no? So 68%, approximately 68% of the data lie within one standard deviation of the mean. So if this is the mean, one standard deviation away, kailangan yung distance niya sa mean. Ayan. So that is approximately 34%, 34%. And then the remaining, bakit 13.6% lang yun nandito? Okay? That's negative, negative 2 standard deviation away. So 2 standard deviation away. And then the last part is the 99.7%. That's 3 standard deviation away, then negative 3 standard deviation away from the mean. So pansinin natin that is approximately 68%. Then ito yun ha, ito. And then the 95.2% from this area up to this area, that is approximately 95.2%. And from this area hanggang dito sa dulo, that is approximately 99.4% of the data. Nakuha po ba?
Yes po.
Okay. So let's apply that to examples. So example number 1, data of weights of newly born babies. Ayan. So, meron na akong given data. So, ito yung mga weight ng newly born babies. So, we have, I think that's 36. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, 9 for each row. Then we have, we have 4 rows. That is equivalent to 36, no? 36 yung ating respondents. Then, 36 din yung number of data natin. So, kailangan nating sagutin what is the frequency and relative frequency of babies' weights that are within letter A, 1 standard deviation from the mean. So, 2 standard deviations from the mean. Then, 3 standard deviation from the mean. So, we are going to represent this data using the normal curve. So, yun yung ating gagawin. So, how do we do that? So, the first thing you need to do is to solve for the mean and standard deviation of the given data. Etong data na to. Kailangan nyo i-solve yung mean saka yung standard deviation. So, paano natin i-solve yung mean and standard deviation? During your statistics and probability in your junior high school, I think grade 8 tinuro to. Tinuruan kayo kumuha ng mean. So, ang pagkuha natin ng mean ay ito. So, that's the symbol for mean. Mean is equal to the summation of x over n. N is the total number of the data, no? Or the total number of respondents. So, ang gagawin lang natin dito sa data, sa data na to, is you need to add everything and then divide it by 36. Then, makukuha nyo na yung mean. Then, the formula for solving the standard deviation is getting the summation of the quantity x minus the mean squared all over n minus 1. N, again, is the total number of respondents. Hindi ko na siya ipapakita dito, no? Kasi I assume, no, na yung pagkuha ng standard deviation ay sa kanang mean ay alam nyo na. If ever na nakalimutan nyo, I suggest, no, pwede naman tayong gumamit ng technology para ma-solve natin yung mean sa yung standard deviation. Later on, ipapakita ko sa inyo yung site na kung saan pwede kayong gumamit ng calculator. Kumbaga, i-enter nyo na lang yung data and then yung system na or yung computer na yung magsasolve ng mean and then ng standard deviation. Ayan. So, sinolve na natin yung mean. So, the mean for that given data is 6.11. and the standard deviation is 1.63. So kailangan natin i-hold yung mga data yung mga values na yan for the mean and standard deviation. Because later on we are going to use the mean and the standard deviation to create a normal curve. Ayan. So create a normal curve using the mean. Our mean is 6.11 and letter A, 1 standard deviation. So represented, ayan. So, paano natin nakuha yung mga values dun sa x-axis? Yung 6.11, 7.74, 9.37, 11, 1.22, 2.85, and 4.48. Okay? Ito, tatandaan natin class, makinig kayo mabuti. So, di ba, nasabi ko kanina dun sa characteristic ng normal curve, ang ating center lagi ng normal curve is yung mean. So, according to our computation, our mean is 6.11. Para makuha natin yung dun sa right side, kailangan lang natin mag-add ng value ng standard deviation. Kung babalikan natin, ang value ng ating standard deviation ay 1.63. Okay? So, 6.11 plus 1.63, that is equivalent to 7.74. Okay, then 7.74 plus 1.63, that is 9.37. Then 9.37 plus 1.63, which is our standard deviation, that is equivalent to 11. Then para doon naman sa left side, 6.11 minus the standard deviation 1.63, that will give us 4.48. Then 4.48 minus the value of the standard deviation, that is 2.85. 2.85 minus the value of the standard deviation, that is equivalent to 1.22. Okay? Now, nabanggit ko na yung mean is the center of the normal curve. And ang sabi is 1 standard deviation away from the mean. So, kailangan lang natin i-shade is yung 1 standard deviation away from the mean. So, ibig sabihin, kailangan mag-add tayo ng 1 standard deviation sa 6.11 and magsusubtract tayo ng 1 standard deviation mula sa mean. So, 6.11 plus the standard deviation, that is 7.74, and then 6.11 minus the standard deviation, that is 4.48. Kaya itong area lang na ito, yung naka-shade. Okay? Ayan. So, ano yung mga data o ilan yung frequency, no, ng data under the normal curve. So, i-analyze natin from 4.48, ito yung mga data natin. So, saan tayo magsisimula? Is 4.38 included in 4.48? I don't think so, no? So, 4.38 is somewhere here. So, hindi siya kailangan included dun sa data. So, 4.69 is around here. So, that's 4.48. So, 4.69 hanggang 7.68 lang. We cannot include 8.47 and above. Bakit? Kasi yung ating data na nagre-represent lang is until 7.74. Okay? So, meaning to say, from 4.69 up to 7.68, ito yung represented ng ating normal curve. Nakuha po ba?
Yes po.
Okay.
Opo, sir.
Okay, so next. Ayan. So, one standard deviation from the mean, the frequency is 26 out of 36 or 72%. Okay, paano natin nakuha yung 72%? 26 divided by 36. Saan nakuha yung 26? Yun yung shaded na data natin. Meaning to say, the data inside the shaded area ng ating normal curve. So, that's 26. Kahit bilangin nyo na lang after. So, next one. Ayan. So, create a normal curve using the mean. And letter B, the 2 standard deviation. Meaning 2 standard deviation away from the mean. So, this is our standard, this is our normal curve. Then the center is the mean, which is 6.11. So, we need 2 standard deviation. Sorry. So, Kanina, 6.11 plus 6.11 plus the standard deviation, that's 7.74. That's one standard deviation away, no? And then, kailangan pa natin magdagdag ng isa pa. So, plus another standard deviation, that is equivalent to 9.37. So, ganun din, 6.11 minus 6.11 minus the standard deviation, that is 4.48. This is one standard deviation away, no? And then 4.48 minus the standard deviation, that's 2.85. So this is 2 SD away from the mean. So from 2.85 hanggang 9.37, aalamin natin alin doon sa mga data given yung nasa loob or nandun sa shaded area ng ating normal curve. Ayan. So, let's do analyze 2.85. So, 2.24 is not included. Why? Kasi yung 2.24 is somewhere here. No? Dun sa unshaded area. So, let's start with 2.93. So, 2.93 is somewhere here, no? So, included na siya. Up to 9.01, yes, kasi ang ating limit ay 9.37. So, 9.01 is somewhere here. So, included siya sa shaded area natin. While 9.47 is not included. Why? Because it's beyond 9.37. So, ayun. So, ilan? Two standard deviation from the mean is 34 out of 36 or 95%. Okay, so 34 divided by 36 times 100, that will give you 95%. Next, create a normal curve using the mean and 3 standard deviation. So meaning to say 3 standard deviation away from the mean. Ayan, so this is our normal curve. So mapapansin natin, no, shaded na siya lahat, ang area natin. So that is the mean, 6.11. And then included na lahat, no, nung ating data. So 2 standard deviation, sorry, it's not 2, it should be 3. So, and then that should be letter C. So 3 standard deviation from the mean is 36 out of 36 or 100%. Meaning to say, all the data presented are now included in our normal curve. Nakuha po ba yon?
Yes po, sir.
Okay. Salamat. Let's proceed to example number 2. So the scores of the junior high school students in their mathematics quarterly exam are normally distributed with a mean of 35 and standard deviation of 5. So given na yung ating ang ating mean and standard deviation. So that is 35 and our standard deviation is 5. And according to the problem, they are normally distributed na. So what percent of the scores are between 30 to 40? So, ayan. So pag represent natin yung normal curve, again, the mean should be the center, no? The central tendency, so that is 35, ayan. So, paano natin nakuha yung 40, 45, 50, 30, 25, 20? Again, we add the standard deviation pagpakanan. No, pag going to right. So 35 plus 5, that's 40, 45, 50. Pag naman going to your left, that is subtraction. So 35 minus 5, that's 30. Then minus 5, 25, 25 minus 5, that's 20. Okay? So what percent of the scores are between 30 to 40? So using the empirical rule, di ba, between 30 to 40, since wala naman tayong data, so we are just assuming, no, what percent. So magbe-base tayo sa sagot natin dito sa empirical rule, the scores that fall between 30 to 40 is approximately 68% of the distribution. Kasi 'di ba kung tatandaan natin yung pagkakahati ng ating normal curve is with percentage. Kung halimbawa wala tayong data na halimbawa sa problem walang data na binigay, so parang hinihingan lang tayo ng approximation, so pwede nating isagot yung empirical rule. Kasi yung rule na yon is already proven. Pag sinabi natin rule sa math, it's already proven and then you can use it to prove something else. So itong area na to, that is approximately 68% of the distribution. Then what scores fall within 95% of the distribution? So anong mga scores daw? No, yung nagfo-fall within 95% of the distribution. So we're gonna draw a normal distribution curve and then let's identify the 95% of that. So ang 95% niyan ay from 25 up to 45. So meaning to say, the scores corresponding to 95% of the distribution are from 25 up to 45. Okay? And then, ayan. Nakuha po ba?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes po.
Yes po.
Okay, this is our last example. So use the empirical rule to complete the following table. Write on the respective, the range or interval of the scores based on the given parameters. Ayan. So we have now the mean and then the standard deviation given. And then we have the parameters. So 68%. Okay, paano natin siya makukuha? That's 95%. Then 99.7%. Ito yung parameters natin. So, di ba, para makuha yung 68% or one standard deviation away, so get the mean, so 20 minus the standard deviation, that is equivalent to 18. So, that's for the left side. And then for the right side, so 20, which is the mean, plus 2. Again, the 2 is the standard deviation, that is equal to 22, so meaning 18 to 22. That is the range, okay? Then for 95% of the data, so 20 minus 2 times the quantity 2 is equivalent to 16. So bakit siya naging 2? 2 times 2. Kasi di ba 2 standard deviation away, so pinasimple na lang natin using mathematical equation. So the mean minus the minus 2 times the standard deviation, that is equivalent to 16. And then so on, so that's 24, then 16 to 24 is the range. Then for the 99.7% or the 3 standard deviation away from the mean, so 20 minus 3 na to, no? 3 times the standard deviation, that is equivalent to 14, then 20, which is the mean, times the standard plus the quantity 3 times the standard deviation is equal to 26. So that is 14 to 26. So the same goes here. So 87 minus 5.5, 87 plus 5.5, that will give you the range. And then for the 2 standard deviation away from the mean, that is equivalent to 76 to 98. And then 3 standard deviation away, that is equivalent to 70.5 to 103.5. So these are my references. By the way, yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina na calculator for solving the mean and standard deviation is this. Ayan. So puntahan niyo yung website na yan and then ida-direct kayo niyan dun sa sa calculator ng standard deviation. So bakit po kayo pinapagamit ng calculator sa statistics? Kasi kailangan natin maging eksakto, no? Eksakto sa sinosolve natin. Kasi once na magkamali tayo ng isang value, is automatic, mali na lahat ng ating data. So mali din yung mag-represent natin na graph. So these are my references, no? And then these are the books that I use for this topic.